I designed this redwood planter box so that you can use it without having to buy any special pots to fill it. You could use one of these 5-gallon buckets that you can pick up at a home center. It'll just drop down in there and you can fill that up with dirt and plants and whatever else you got. I'm going to start with the legs. I'm just going to laminate together 8 2x4s to make 4 posts. So I think what I can do is clamp together 2 pairs of these at once. I'm cutting some grooves in the edges of those cross pieces for the slats to slide into. These are just going to be about 3/4 of an inch deep and about 1/4 of an inch wide. So here's what I picked up for the slats. It's this garden edging. This is redwood garden edging. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick, although that varies from spot to spot. Sometimes it's a little bit thinner. It's real rough, but it's also very inexpensive and it'll work great for this project. You can find this in the garden department of a home center, or even like a gardening store, I would imagine would have it, probably. And these are already a little bit less than 3.5 inches wide, so I don't need to rip these down. I'll just cut these to length. Actually, I do need to rip these down a little bit. I just didn't read my own plans closely enough. I'm using my drill press to drill out some counter bores to attach these posts to the cross pieces. These are going to be about half the depth of these posts. Okay, I want to show you how this is intended to go together and where I screwed up a little bit and how I think I can fix it. So these cross pieces, I've got them sitting on this piece of plywood right here to raise them up so that they will be in the center of these posts. So the idea here was that these screws are going to go into those holes and then come out this side like this. So when I drilled these holes, the idea was that they would be staggered. I would have one here and then one staggered down here to connect the cross piece going this way. But what I did is I drilled these holes too far apart. So in other words, when this screw goes in here, that'll be fine, like that, that'll hold. But as you can see, this one, when it's going into that next cross piece, is actually gonna come through right where that slot goes for the slat. So that's a problem. So there's a couple of options I could do here. I could plug these holes with dowels and then re-drill them, but I don't really care much for that idea. And then the other idea would be to make these all over again, but make them as wide as the post. So I'm gonna sort of go that route, but in a hybrid way. I'm gonna still use these that I already made, but I cut out a bunch of these 1/2-inch strips here that I'll just glue on to the tops of those and then make them a little bit wider. So what I'm gonna do is in the plans, I'm gonna correct where these holes are drilled so that you can still use the thinner boards, because I think those will look a little bit nicer than the wider boards. But for this is how I'm dealing with it. Using my router, I'm adding a decorative chamfer along the edges and ends of those posts. Okay, I think I'm back in business here. So I've got these all sanded down flush, and nobody will ever know they've been repaired. Well, you can sort of tell if you look closely, but it's good enough for me. So I think my plan here is I'm going to use this piece to raise them up to the halfway point. I can make the top pieces flush with the tops of the posts, and then the bottom pieces I can actually line up using a 2x4. That should work. Line that up with the bottom. Then what I gotta do is just slide these into the slots somehow. That's why my 2x4 isn't working out here, because I added that extra inch to these. So I think what I need to do is, so I got two options here, or just have this bottom, oh no, I can't cut that. Oh, you know what? I have to cut. Oh, okay. So you know what I gotta do is I've gotta cut these down that extra inch for those pieces. Otherwise these holes won't line up. Okay. Are you following me here? In my head, this all makes sense. Okay. This would go here, and these just need to be cut down. Cut these down 1 inch, that ought to do it. Okay, now we're rolling. I have a feeling this very first one is going to be the only easy one, but we'll see here in a minute. The slats aren't going to get glued in there. That way, if they get wet, there's plenty of room for these to expand and contract. So they're just going to float in here loosely. But I think what I'm going to do is glue and screw these cross pieces in. This will be flush with the top. This can go down here. These are 3-inch deck screws I'm driving in here. I need a battery. This ought to work better. Okay, that worked out. A little tricky trying to get that all assembled there, but I think it's only going to get worse to get the rest of them. Some way, somehow, I'm confident that this is going to work. Trying a little different strategy this time. Let's see if this works. Got a twist in it, you see that? It's because these slats are kind of warped. But I think it's okay. Once I clamp it down and get it screwed in, it'll all straighten out. Well, that didn't work. Let's try that again. Okay. I'm not sure what I was clamping on, but it did not want to hold. Okay, that's almost perfect. Not quite, but it's good enough. All right, that side. There you go, that's that straightening out part there. Coming along. Good. Well, it was a little tricky getting those panels all together, but Not as bad as I was kind of expecting. One thing I wanted to point out is that all of this garden edging, I just left it rough like that. I like that contrast between this smooth redwood sides and frame and then just that kind of natural look. I think this will look good once I get it all stained. I think those top caps will look nicer if they're a little thinner, so I'm going to resaw this 2x4 into 2 pieces. I'll make 45-degree miters on the ends of these boards. I think what I'll do is glue this frame together first and then attach it to the top. I think you could probably just tack it right to the top too, but I think this might be a little bit easier, especially if I want to chamfer the edges around there. I haven't decided yet. These miter joints aren't going to be particularly strong, but again, they don't need to be because this whole assembly is going to be attached to that top. So I like to use this strap clamp here for joining anything with 45-degree miters together. It really simplifies it. I think I will put a chamfer around this just to keep it consistent with the posts. I'll glue this to the top and I'll tack it into place with a few brads while it dries. I'll just try to center it visually. You can make the base out of any boards you want. I'm going to use the rest of this garden edging. So these will just drop down in here like that. What I got to do is cut out a notch on these two. All of these boards can just kind of set on those little shelves there. I don't see any reason to screw them in or attach them in any way. This is the same redwood stain and sealer I used last year when I built my deck. It's water-based, it's real easy to apply, you just kind of slather it on. If you decide that this is too low for you, you can just prop it up to whatever height you need by just dropping a couple of 2x4s in the bottom. If you'd like to make one of these yourself, I have a set of plans available over at Shop WWMM on a pay-what-you-want basis. And I want to give a quick shout out to all of the patrons who support this channel over on Patreon and keep it sponsor-free. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate your support. It's already time to refinish these chairs. That's the problem with stained projects. You gotta redo it every year. In fact, look at the deck. That deck is the same color stain that that planter box is. That was just a year ago. I'm not gonna paint it, don't worry. Oh, Bubbles! What are you doing? Gotcha, I got you. Look, there's Bubbles. You were on a mission. You were heading someplace. All right, let's wrap this up.